Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of this F1 25 Joshua Pearce career mode. This is part 22 of the series. If you did miss the last episode, Sonny Hayes finally got his first victory in Formula 1 and it was also a 1-2 for the team, but it didn't come easy. We had a fantastic pace very early on and only for a red flag to come out when Bortoleto and Antonelli suffered a huge crash trying to avoid the breaking down Red Bull of Yuki Tsunoda. This gave people behind us, like Max Verstappen, a good chance to try and break up our 1-2 attempt, but we would just hold on to claim it after Max did put on quite the effort to try and steal it away from us with a bit of a drag race to the line, but we held on, and it was our first 1-2 for Apex GP, and crucially, a first win for Sonny Hayes. Heading into this race weekend, Max Verstappen has extended his championship lead over Lando Norris to 73 points. Myself, we sit third, 67 points behind Lando. Sonny Hayes is in ninth, 34 points behind George Russell, and Red Bull lead the Constructors' Championship by 57 points to McLaren. Ferrari are third, 90 points further back, and Apex GP, we sit fourth, another 58 points further back as well. And we're going to jump straight to the durability, saving more parts with the new regulation change. And at this point in time, I'm not sure if we're actually going to be able to save a lot, save everything. There's a lot that still needs to get done with only 3 rounds left of the season. And we got a couple of new parts on the card this weekend, one for the gearbox and 2 of them for the ICE, so hopefully they'll come in handy, especially the ICE upgrades around the long straights here in Las Vegas. And we are still the fastest car on the grid, but McLaren have brought some upgrades this weekend to get themselves back ahead of Red Bull, but it's still very close in performance between the two teams. Mercedes and Ferrari also on near identical performance with Aston Martin not too far behind, and the bottom 5 has really closed up with Sauber still the slowest car on the grid just behind the Racing Bulls as we jump straight to qualifying in Las Vegas.
Stand by to see cars at more than 210 miles an hour blasting their way down the strip. F1 has taken over. It's F1 Fever, Las Vegas.
Las Vegas is definitely a very unique circuit here for Formula 1, driving down the Las Vegas Strip and going around the sphere. But first, we've got a team radio before we head into qualifying.
Right, we've lost telemetry. In fact, we've lost pretty much all sensor information. It's being looked into now, so just bear with us for a few minutes if you can, please.
Well, that is definitely annoying. It's not going to be too much of an issue because there's only a 40-second delay, but that is going to put us off a little bit, and in the end we will actually only do the 1 lap in qualifying as it was enough to get us through. And Hayes goes fastest in qualifying 1 by 3/10 to Max Verstappen, then it's Norris in third, 8/10 behind, and myself in fifth. We're 9/10 off the pace, so there is a massive spread in times, and knocked out in at qualifying 1 here is Nico Hulkenberg by only 0.06 of a second, Kimi Antonelli, Liam Lawson, Oliver Behrman, Isaac Hadjob makes it both the Racing Bulls out of qualifying, and Stroll rounds out the field as we're really close to the back of George Russell on our flying lap here. I'm using the slipstream from the Mercedes, but unfortunately we don't get it too right, and going into the braking zone at the end of the strip, unfortunately we lock the rears, having to try and avoid him. We still go faster than the British driver, but unfortunately that was a lot of time lost, so we go out on a fresh set of tyres, and you can see that was a good chunk of time we gained. It was about half a second we managed to find in the final sector, and when it comes to the end of the session, it's Leclerc fastest by 400ths to Lando Norris, and then Ocon in third. He's only 5 thousandths behind Lando, so very good there from the Haas driver. Myself in fourth, a 10th behind, and our teammate Sonny Hayes in fifth, only 200ths behind me. So very, very close margins between us, and Verstappen only makes it into the shootout by a single thousandth of a second, and that eliminates Jack Doohan by the slimmest margins. Yuki Tsunoda, Russell, Piastri, Albon, and Bortoleto not making it to this final part of qualifying, which is over very quickly because having to do that extra lap, we only had the 1 set of tyres, and that has allowed Sonny Hayes to get pole position by a massive 0.6 of a second, and Max Verstappen will join him on the front row. Norris is in third, 7/10 behind, and myself in fourth. We're 8/10 off the pace.
Welcome to Las Vegas, and for Formula One, it's welcome back to Las Vegas. No longer do we race in the Caesars Palace car park. Tonight, the time is right to go racing in the street. 17 corners, 3 straights, 2 DRS zones, and the glitz and glamour of Las Vegas as we race around the 3.8 miles of Sin City. The strip has been taken over to become a straight tonight, commanding top speeds of around 212 miles an hour. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Sonny Hayes lines up on pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Pearce, Gasly, Esteban Ocon, and Fernando Alonso, Leclerc, Doohan, Russell, and Lando Norris, Piastri, Albon, Gabriel Bortoleto, and Hülkenberg, Antonelli, Lawson, Carlos Sainz, and Ollie Behrman, Hamilton, Stroll, Hadja, and Yuki Tsunoda rounds off the grid. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race. And alongside me here today in the commentary box, Anthony Davidson, quitting while you're ahead, not spending too much on the slot machines and trying to get some decent sleep. That's my main 3 challenges here in Las Vegas, but what about the drivers?
Yeah, speaking about the on-track challenges, Crofty, enough about you and your challenge over the weekend. This track, you're on Monza downforce, don't forget. So every corner that comes your way, you've got way less grip than you're accustomed to in a Formula One car. So you've got to tread carefully, particularly around the higher speed content on the circuits.
Okay, radio check, radio check. Okay, here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
So that is pretty big heading into this Grand Prix. Lando Norris's last-ditch attempt to stay in championship contention. He has taken an engine penalty, which had promoted us to P3, but he is now starting down in the pack and has got some work to do with Verstappen on the front row. And for the strategy, we're going to stick with the 1-stop. I'm banking on a chance that there could be a safety car, maybe to open up the 2-stop, which looks like a pretty good strategy to be on with the tyre wear. But we're away here in Vegas, and it's a really good start for ourselves. Could we possibly look at trying to take the lead away from our teammates? We go to the outside. Can we try and get the switchback going? No. Hayes gets the better exit on those medium compound tyres. Everyone inside the top 5 on the mediums, and he pulls away just slightly by nearly half a second. And behind is Pierre Gasly, who has got himself up into 3rd. He's jumped Max Verstappen, so Verstappen's gone from P2 down to P4 and possibly losing a position to 5th position with Ocon looking very racy behind. Leclerc and Alonso, they're battling it out and slowing each other up, and further down the field they're still finding their own piece of real estate here in Las Vegas as we head around the sphere. And now to the Las Vegas Strip, we're now under attack. Our teammate has absolutely bolted. He's already over a second down the road. Gasly, he's looking to try and see if he can't get himself up into P2. He does momentarily, but we lift off the brake just a little bit, roll it into the corner, squeeze him out on the exit, and that has worked an absolute treat because now he has also fallen out of our DRS. He's now over a second behind us, so we have played the defensive game to perfection, and that has now saved us from any possible attack from behind. For now, it's 1.3 to Hayes, and now it's 1.2 to Gasly, with Gasly now under the pump from Max Verstappen. Verstappen hounding the back of the Alpine as they head into the DRS zone for the very first time this Grand Prix. He swings it to the outside to try and get a move done under the brakes. Is he going to be able to get it done? He does get it done. Verstappen back up into 3rd position as he tries to now recover some positions here in today's Grand Prix after that pretty average race start, we must say. And further down the field, Piastri, who also started outside the top 10 after being knocked out in qualifying 2, is finding himself now back inside the points, with Norris also up to 9th position now. So the McLaren's running P9, P10 a little bit further down than they would probably like, and they've still got also a Constructors' Championship to think about. So all the focus has been on Lando Norris so far with his Drivers' Championship. It's been very close between him and Max Verstappen, but remember, early on in the season, Max Verstappen managed to claim 7 victories in a row, and that kind of eked out his championship lead a little bit, but Norris has been slowly knocking on the door and bringing that championship point battle down to a margin where he could still mathematically still be in contention, but at the moment it doesn't look like that will be the case come the checkered flag if they were to stay as they were, with Verstappen in 3rd, Norris in 8th, now dropping down to 9th, that is not going to be enough for Norris to try and stay in this championship contention, and this would definitely mean a 5th world title for Max Verstappen if they were to stay the way it is right now. But we're looking at a battle here between the Alpine of Gasly, the Haas of Ocon, 2 cars that you don't normally see battling it up at the front. It's Ocon up into P4, and Gasly will have to sit back in 5th position just for now as he looks around the outside, but in the end gets squeezed out by Ocon. But now, just a few hundred meters down the road, he will now have the advantage of the DRS, and in fact his straight line speed's that good with a bit of slipstream. He's going to be side by side and just ahead before they even make it to the DRS. But here comes Charles Leclerc. He makes it 3 wide going into this really tight section. Behind him, it's also 3 wide, so they're going 3 by 2 into this really tight section here before the end of the lap. And in the end, Gasly holds on, but he's got Ocon still side by side. Leclerc tried going for a very cheeky maneuver to make it 3 wide into there. Unfortunately, it hasn't quite worked out for him, so he'll have to remain in 6th position. Norris finds himself now up into 7th position. That is another position gained for Norris, and in the end, that will all prove to be very, very crucial in this championship battle. Piastri is up to 9th, so he is slowly making up some ground. He's had to come from further back than Lando Norris, so both McLarens on a very good charge through the field. Piastri, he's not wasting any time though. He's only just got himself by George Russell, and then within the span of a couple of corners, he is looking to get himself ahead of Fernando Alonso. Will be able to make it done as they head through the sphere, and that is him now up into 8th position. And this battle is really, really heating up. But as you take a look at the top of the timing standings here, Hayes still leads the way. We currently sit in P2, but we now find ourselves in the exact same position that we did in Brazil. Hayes leading the way, myself in 2nd, just staying in his DRS, and we are able to just keep extending our lead to the car in 3rd. The gap to Max Verstappen now currently sits at 3.5 seconds as we receive our first objective of the Grand Prix, which is to overtake our teammate now. So Mark reckons that we've got the better pace than Sonny does, and maybe we've also been able to look after our tyres a little bit better because we're not able, we're not having to push through the middle part of the circuit because we can just get all of that time back down the DRS straights here. As you can see, we're using the DRS, so we're at maximum velocity. Are we able to take the lead away from our teammates? We go to the outside, we brake late, and in the end, we get a little bit wide, and Sonny will get back through. So that was a little bit of a taster to maybe what we can try and do, and we're just experimenting. We've got the gap to be able to do it, and even though we battled like that, our gap to Max Verstappen has remained over 3 seconds, so we've definitely got a little bit of time here to afford to maybe try and see whereabouts we can make this overtake work. We've tried around the outside at the end of the Las Vegas Strip. It didn't quite work out, but I reckon that's still probably going to be one of the better places to try and get this move done. Because then, yes, there is a fast straight coming up immediately after, but it's crucially not aided by DRS, as this straight here is, where we see Charles Leclerc now get himself ahead of Lando Norris, and the McLarens looking very racy. They're now P6, P7, with Piastri actually now making it 3 wide, and Charles Leclerc looks like he was going to be the one to make the move, but in the end, he's going to get done by both McLarens, and he'll have to drop down to 7th position now, so the McLarens go side by side through there. Very tight stuff, and in the end, it's Piastri that now leads Norris P5, P6. Further down the field, there is a yellow flag, and it is for Stroll, who's now traveling slowly down the Las Vegas Strip. And is this going to be for some sort of a mechanical issue? It definitely is. A question answered immediately as a giant plume of smoke comes out the back of his Aston Martin as we take a look back at Lando Norris, and he is trying to get himself back up to P5. I'm surprised the McLarens are still able to actually battle, that there's no team orders just yet, considering that, you know, Norris is definitely trying to keep his championship alive here, but all Piastri is doing is maybe just slowing down the progress. I don't really think they're gaining on Gasly. If anything, I think they're losing time to Gasly, who's broken away from the 2 McLarens here. With them battling, he's been able to drop their DRS. And currently behind the 2 McLarens, Ocon there into the Haas gets himself now up to 7th. So Ocon is now the lead Ferrari-powered unit car, sitting in 7th position as Verstappen now comes in. So is Verstappen going for the 2-stop? And I reckon it is, because he's going for another set of mediums. So Verstappen going the aggressive strategy. The the strategy that's meant to be about 10 seconds slower in race pace, but he won't have to worry about tyre wear, so he can essentially do qualifying laps here. And where is he going to come out? It looks like it's going to be out in a massive amount of traffic. That is a lot of cars, so I don't think Red Bull have actually timed this one too well, because Verstappen now, with the fresher tyres, he should be able to make his way through this field quite easily, but he's stuck in a lot of dirty air, and around here, the dirty air is very, very noticeable. So I'll be surprised if this is actually going to be any good. As behind, is that Jack Doohan and Lewis Hamilton? It is in the fence, and that has caused a traffic jam down at turn 4, and that has brought out the red flag. Wow. Now, this is going to change things up. Me and Sonny, we were so comfortable out in front. We were pulling away from third position, which was now Pierre Gasly. And so he was a very solid amount of time back, and Jack Doohan looks like he loops it on the exit. But unfortunately for Lewis here, he was on the outside trying to make an overtake, and then he just gets put into the fence by the spinning Alpine. And Sainz here as well behind. He's got nowhere to go, because if he tries to go right, there's a chance that the Alpine could have been spinning towards him. And in the end, just has to come to a stop, and that was enough for the red flag to come out. And it's going to be a stretch, but we're going to try and get these hards to the end. We've got 14 laps to get them through, and we're going to have to try and just make it work, because a pit stop's probably not going to be too viable as we're away once again. And it's a much better start for us this time around, and we easily get the lead going into turn 1 here. And so this is going to absolutely piss Sonny off. It's his home Grand Prix. He's been leading this entire way, and now, thanks to a red flag, we've managed to get a much better start than he has, and we now find ourselves leading the Las Vegas Grand Prix ahead of our teammate. Pierre Gasly still sits in third as the McLarens now battling it out. Piastri looking to the inside of Lando Norris. Is he going to be able to get this move completed? He looks to the outside now as the track switches direction, and as they head into this section with the sphere, is it going to be Norris or is it going to be Piastri? It's Norris who leads out of the McLaren camp, and he currently sits P4. Piastri will have to sit for P5, and behind him it's Ocon, Leclerc, Russell, Alonso, and Gabriel Bortoleto in the points, doing an absolute wicked job in that Sauber that's considered the slowest car on the grid. So he's doing really well to get that car well and truly up into the points, but we've made a crucial mistake going onto the Vegas Strip here. We've had a terrible exit, and look at that time delta to our teammate Sonny Hayes. He is dropping that time down, and he is all over the back of our car. We've been able to not quite yet drop Gasly, but he is only 9/10 behind, so he could be well and truly dropped very quickly here in this DRS train, and Hayes will go to the lead once again. We climb all over the curb, and that actually unsettles the car, so now that has brought Gasly all the way back up to the back of us. He's 4/10 behind, but as we go through the rest of the lap, it turns out he doesn't really have too much pace going through that middle sector. So you can see there, we've kind of pulled out a little bit of a gap. He's now under attack from Norris. Norris now gets himself up onto the podium, while Verstappen is still outside of the point after having to make that pit stop. That was absolutely horrendous timing for a red flag, I must say. I don't think I've mentioned that quite yet, how badly timed a red flag that was for Verstappen there, coming into the pits on his out lap. That is when it came out. So he is going to be making absolutely zero ground, and to rub salt into the wounds, everyone else got a free pit stop. So that pit stop has turned out to be absolutely useless, as he sits in 11th position right now, and up on the screen just before. Our next objective of the Grand Prix was to once again try and overtake our teammate. So I definitely reckon clean air is going to be the way to go if we can actually try and manage to drop our teammate through that middle sector. That's where we're going to have to put the hammer down, but we have to be very careful because we can't use too much ERS, or otherwise we might find ourselves with not enough to defend going down the straights. As George Russell here, he is looking to try and defend down the straight because he's got Ocon now side by side with him, and it looks like the S1 might be able to actually get the move done. He does get the move done, so that puts him now up into 6th position. George Russell has to settle for 7th, and behind him, Alonso and Leclerc go side by side. It's Alonso who gets the better of Leclerc here, with Verstappen now into 10th position. Alonso, though, as it comes back to the straight here, he is going to get that position back from George Russell. But with how long this straight is, you can make a move and then immediately come under attack, which is exactly what has just happened. As I was about to start explaining it, Russell sends it back to the inside. And so Fernando, he used the DRS. He got himself past George Russell. Russell then tucked back into the slipstream and was able to get himself back ahead of Fernando going into the braking zone. And now Fernando is being absolutely freight trained. He was battling for 7th position and he can now find himself sitting in 10th position with Max Verstappen now going down his inside. Verstappen, the recovery drive is absolutely on. He now finds himself in 9th position. Charles Leclerc and George Russell continue to go side by side. It's going to be Leclerc with the DRS, so he should be able to pull ahead. Verstappen is trying to get himself a part of this battle as well, as we ride on board with Charles Leclerc, and there's contact with Max Verstappen, and that is Verstappen's front wing gone. He's missing his end plate there on the right-hand side of the car. So is that going to be enough for Max to have to come in for yet another pit stop? He's definitely lost time to George Russell. He's lost 0.6 of a second through that middle sector, and I don't know how much of that he's going to be able to pull back going down this straight, because Russell also had the DRS on Charles Leclerc as they go side by side. Max Verstappen is able to catch up a little bit of time. There's a bit more contact now further down the field. We can see a little smoke screen there, and this is Verstappen now. He pulls into the lane, and that is that going to be his day done? There's only going to be 10 laps to go. Only 10 laps to go, and he's going to have to make up so much ground as the battle with Alonso continues, and he's trying to get himself now back ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto. So Bortoleto is taking great advantage of all this battling taking place here, and he's putting that Sauber up inside the top 10, but is that going to be taken away by Lewis Hamilton? It is, as Hamilton now gets himself up inside the top 10, back on board with ourselves. Is this going to be the moment we take the lead away from our teammate Sonny Hayes? It's the closest we've been in some time. That objective came on lap 13. It's 3 laps later. We look to the outside once again. Can we learn from our previous attempt? We do. We don't run wide. We do run a little wide though, but we get the move completed. And there's yellow flag, and Sonny Hayes, he's in the wall. He's in the wall. No. What happened there? We were battling, and now he finds himself in the fence, and that's going to bring out the safety car. What has happened here with our teammate riding on board with him? So he brakes early, very smart to not go side by side through there, and is that a wash of dirty air? What has happened there for our teammate to end up in the fence? That was such a fantastic battle with Sonny, and didn't maybe get a little bit too close to the inside wall. So I reckon he's got too close to that inside wall. You can see him right on the apex there of that corner. He's started turning it right just a little bit there. And I reckon so he's got himself a little bit too close, tried to correct it, and in the end just got a snap of oversteer and just put him in the fence. Norris, very, very close. So also collecting our teammate on the way through with the yellow flags not quite out yet. And we're going to do an order check here under the safety car. So it's myself leading the way ahead of the 2 McLarens, Norris ahead of Piastri. Then it's Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, and Yuki Tsunoda rounding out the points. Then it's Jack Doohan, Oliver Behrman, Kimi Antonelli, Gabriel Bortoleto, and Max Verstappen is in 15th position after having to take that extra pit stop to fix that damage. But this safety car kind of saves him, because now everyone's bunched up once again, and behind him is Sainz, Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Albon, and Liam Lawson as we get ready for a restart here in Las Vegas. We put the pedal to the metal and we get going, and it's about a 7/10 of a second head start that we get on Lando Norris now. So it's all about trying to break the DRS here, because if we can't break the DRS, we don't have the assistance of our teammate anymore. So it's all for ourselves here, and after that we must get this race win. It's what Sonny needs us to do. We need to get this race win. We cannot let this happen again, where one of us retires from the Grand Prix and then the other one doesn't go on to win. It's happened in Mexico. In Mexico, it was a 1-2 locked in the bag. Absolutely, it was a 1-2 locked in the bag. I unfortunately ended up having an engine failure. In the end, that released Max Verstappen, and that allowed Verstappen to go on and take victory. That took it away from Sonny Hayes. Sonny Hayes was then able to recover in Brazil, and he gets that race win. As there's a big smoke here of a engine failure, and is that for Hadjar? It is for Isaac Hadjar, so that is very unfortunate. He was running in a half decent position considering where that car is, so he was running about 15th, 16th, I reckon, at the time, but that has hindered Sonoda. Sonoda restarted this Grand Prix in 10th position. He now finds himself at 19th. So I wonder if he maybe just got stuck behind a slowing Hadjar there, and that allowed the rest of the field just to freight train by him. But yeah, now that Sonny Hayes is out of this Grand Prix, we can't let this sort of situation happen twice, where we had a 1-2 pretty much locked and sealed, signed, delivered, it was gone, it was ours, and then in the end we don't even get a race win. So now the target is absolutely to win the race. You can see there that we have actually been able to extend the lead to nearly 2 seconds over Lando Norris. The gap's kind of fluctuating a little bit between the 1.5 and 2 seconds. Some laps I kind of make a little mistake here or there. Just you know, the pressure's very much there. He may be 2 seconds behind, but the pressure is very much there, knowing that if I do make a mistake, he could be well and truly back into our DRS, and you can see that the gap now over 2 seconds to Lando Norris, so we're starting to eke it out just a little bit back behind. The final points paying positions are not sealed up yet, so the top 3 is pretty much done and dusted with only 4 laps to go, unless either driver makes a mistake. But from P4 onwards, it is still all to play for, as they're all pretty much in their own DRS battles. And we can see here Bortoletto, he's in a battle with Jack Doohan, he's in battle with Fernando Alonso. Max Verstappen's in here as well. So Verstappen's going to be looking to try and get himself inside the points, because, again, I mentioned this at the start of the episode, or at the start of the Grand Prix, that depending where Norris finishes, you know, Max Verstappen could still try and claim this world title. At the start, it was Norris more trying to keep his championship alive. At the moment, it looks like P2 is going to be about as good as it gets, unless I make a mistake, as the gap now drops down to 1.5 seconds. So he's gaining a little bit on us, as towards the end of this Grand Prix, the tyre wear does start to kick in just a little bit. But the tyres are still, honestly, feeling really good at this stage of the Grand Prix. But yeah, Max Verstappen, if he can get himself up into the points, I think it's P8 or P9 he needs off the top of my head, points-wise, and that would seal the deal for the championship. So if he can get to about there, I reckon he could be in a good shot of claiming the championship, just like he did in real life, claiming the championship in Las Vegas, which is quite the place to do it, as the 2 Ferraris battle it out. But the Alpine now looking to try and get a part of the action here. Pierre Gasly, who was running as high as 3rd, but now with the safety cars, with the red flags, finds himself still battling inside the points, but a little bit further down now, battling for a 6th position. He's side by side with Charles Leclerc. He looks to the outside, and there's a big slide there for Gasly, and unfortunately that will mean that his attack on Leclerc is done just for the time being. Max Verstappen, though, he is looking to the inside of Jack Doohan. He can't do it there, so he goes to the outside. Is he going to be able to outbrake the Australian driver here? And he does go around the outside, and that is him now inside the points, as George Russell now looks to try and get himself up into P4 here. So as I said before, these positions are well and truly not done and dusted yet. But Ocon, though, unlike Pierre Gasly, he's been able to actually maintain position through the red flags, through the safety car. So he's done really, really well. And as mentioned before, he is also currently the lead Ferrari car. You know, Haas run a Ferrari-powered engine. So Haas being in a P5 is the highest current placed Ferrari. So, you know, he's in front of the 2 factory Ferraris, sitting P6 and P7. You've then got Behrman down in 13th position. And, you know, you've also got the Saubers. So you've got the Saubers in P10 and P15. So, you know, Ocon definitely holding his own, proving his worth to the Formula 1 grid, with silly season pretty much well and truly underway. It was a few episodes ago that we got the first rumours that things were not looking too safe for the drivers in Racing Bulls. Their season definitely not been one to remember, with them currently last in the Constructors' Championship. So is maybe Ocon a driver who could find himself at Racing Bulls? It would seem a bit like a downgrade, though, if Ocon was to go to the Racing Bulls, but we'll have to find out. We've only got 2 rounds left of the season after this checkered flag drops with Verstappen. Is he going to be able to get one more position? This will get him up into that crucial P8 position to claim the World Championship. He goes around the outside. of Pierre Gasly. Is he going to be able to get it done? He's got Bortoleto tucked in behind him as well, but he will claim that 8th position, and I think, off the top of my head, with the math, that is going to be the World Championship for Max Verstappen as we cross the line to win in Las Vegas. It's a very, very well fought for win.
Well, it's certainly been an incredible year for Formula One, and our drivers have all pushed themselves this season, making it one of the most compelling years of racing in history. There can only be one champion, however, and here they are now, our new Formula One World Drivers' Champion. Teamwork makes the dream work, and how well has this team worked today? It's victory for Joshua Pearce.
It was a joy to watch today, honestly, because the driver was clearly able to read the conditions well on track, to use the information properly from the team, and usually come up with the right solution at the right time.
Well, it's been a long wait for many of our drivers, but the wait is always worth it. Bring them out to the awaiting crowd. It's time for our podium celebrations.
So even though we've won the Las Vegas Grand Prix, it does feel a little bit disappointing to not have Sonny up here with us. He drove a fantastic race until that incident, and it's a McLaren double podium as well, which we haven't seen at all this season. And even with Norris claiming that P2, it just wasn't enough in the end to keep him in the title contention, with Verstappen sealing the title, and he can relax a bit heading into the final 2 rounds of the season. And the rest of the top 10 was Charles Leclerc, Esteban Ocon, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Pierre Gasly and Gabriel Bortoleto, with Isaac Hadjar and Lance Stroll both suffering engine failures in the Grand Prix. And unfortunately, as we saw, Sonny Hayes, while battling for the lead, had a bit of an incident, and he will not finish today's Grand Prix. And for the championship, it's now pretty much wrapped up with decent gaps between the top few drivers. Verstappen, as we saw, is the world champion, with Lando Norris trailing him by 59 points. Myself sits third, 60 points behind Lando, and our teammate Sonny Hayes is in ninth, 42 points behind George Russell. And for the Constructors' Championship, it's still all to play for, with Red Bull leading the way by only 28 points to McLaren. Ferrari sit third, 105 points further back, and Apex GP, we're fourth, another 51 points back. And we are leading our driver rating rivalry against Pierre Gasly. We need to get to a driver rating 88 to win this one. And speaking of our driver ratings, our experience, racecraft, pace and focus gain points, with the awareness to level 86 for a new overall rating of 87. And I feel like despite winning the Grand Prix, the fact that our battle with our teammate didn't go too well and ended up with him in the wall, our recognition has dropped to 58% after today's Grand Prix. And that is going to be all for today's episode. So if you did enjoy it, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next episode, where we head to Qatar for the second to last round of the season.